Hello and good morning. It's morning where we are. Today is March the 10th when we are recording. We hope you are doing well. It is warming up where we are, which is kind of surprising to me in March, but it is. Likely we'll get cold again. We have been thinking of you. Hope you are doing well. I'm Ms. Shepherd. Today we are here to do the Buddhist service. We hope that's why you're here too. And we're just glad to be here. I'll let Miss Ross say hi.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Shepherd. Just more of the same, just really been thinking about you guys. And it's been a year since we've been able to come and visit in person. And I don't know about you, but I'm really feeling that loss. So just been really thinking a lot about that lately, and looking forward to whatever day it will be when we can be there in person, but otherwise just hoping that what we share today can help support you in some way, just as I find my practice is pretty much the only thing supporting me in my life. So just glad that you're here with us today. And if you're new, welcome. And just, again, hopefully you can get something that will help support you from today's program. Ms. Shepherd.
Thank you. And just a reminder that if there is comments or questions or things you'd like us to be sure to touch on or to do differently, please let your chaplain or your psych services person, whoever it is that's running this for you, please let them know, and they can be in touch with us. We would be happy to know how this is going for you, that we do it in order that hopefully it is of some help. So we'd like it to be helpful. So please let us know what would be most helpful for you, because that's why we do it. Okay, so we'll run this session today as we generally do. I'll go and I'll light the candles and the incense. Then we'll chant the reflections on universal well-being. Then we'll go into a guided meditation. We'll have a conversation about a topic and hopefully have time at the end for another short meditation. Now let us chant the reflections on universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all beings be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs.
So with the sound of the bell, we'll transition from the chanting, acknowledging the teachings of the Buddha, into our own practice, our own meditation practice. So taking your meditation posture, whether you're sitting, standing, lying down, a posture that you can be supported, yet feel upright and relaxed. So those three pieces of our meditation posture. So we want to feel grounded, supporting. So if we're sitting, feel grounded into the chair or your cushion or your bed. If you're standing, feeling your feet grounded. If you're lying down, feeling that support. Yet feeling upright and alert. So the spine is long. The head is balanced on the spine. The shoulders are relaxed. The chest is open. So we're upright, yet relaxed and supported in our grounding. The eyes can be open or closed. If they're open, just a soft gaze. Just really feeling yourself coming into the body, grounding in that sensation of the body, resting on its support. Sensing that groundedness of the body resting. And just as the body rests on its support, the mind is resting in the body. So becoming aware of the mind, this awareness, however you perceive it, the mind resting in the body is like this. And we can set the intention for our practice in this meditation. And I would suggest that the intention would be to choose a meditation object and to stay with that meditation object is our intention. So if you work with awareness of the body, or maybe you work with breath awareness, or maybe you have a mantra, whatever your meditation object is, set the intention to stay with it, to train the mind to be steady with that object. And so we can observe the mind, what happens when the mind does and doesn't stay with that object. So our intention is to stay with an object. If you don't have one that you regularly work with, I suggest the breath, just knowing breathing in is like this, breathing out is like this. So breath awareness, knowing when you're breathing in, knowing when you're breathing out. Whatever your meditation object, being fully with it, fully present. Knowing our meditation object in this moment is like this, maintaining the awareness. And sometimes I'll notice when we're first starting meditating, the mind wants to wander. It'll lose the object and off thinking or falling asleep or daydreaming. Just notice when the mind does that. And it's not a problem. This is part of our practice, is to notice when the mind loses that object that we intend to stay with. Where does it go? What's it doing? And maybe just notice what the quality of the mind is. Is it restless or sleepy or dull? And then resetting our intention to go back to observing our meditation object. It's like this right now. And we can check in and notice where the mind is. Is it still with the meditation object? Or has it gone off somewhere else? And if it has, what's it doing? Is it wanting something? Is it thinking and not wanting something? Is it spacing out? Where's the mind? How is it? It's agitated, relaxed, sleepy. How is the body? And then going back to our intention to stay with the meditation object. It's like this. My meditation object is like this right now. Noticing where the mind is, if it's still with its object or if it's wandered off. And again, just noticing if it has, where it's gone. It's moving towards something, desire, an idea, a thought. Is it checking out, wanting to disappear? Where's the mind? How's the mind? How's the body? And then resetting our intention to be with our meditation object. Just witnessing the meditation object with curiosity of what's happening right here, right now. Checking in again. Where is the mind? Is it still with the object? And if so, how is it? It's lost again. Where is it? Is it gone off thinking, dreaming, wanting, checking out? Is it moving towards something or moving away from present experience instead of just being there as a steady witness? So we can observe what the patterns of the mind are. When it stays steady on the meditation object, how it is. When it wants to be somewhere else or disconnect from this moment, how is it then, and how the body is. And by repeating this over and over again, we've learned the habits of the mind. We get to know what its habits are and whether they feel helpful or if they're agitating or make us feel dull. So we get to know ourselves in a better way, to see what's beneficial and what isn't. This is our practice. And the sound of the bell takes us out, and just maybe take a moment and reflect on what your experience was in that meditation. Were you able to stay with your meditation object? And if you were, how was the mind? And in those times, which I don't know about you, but for me, it's inevitable, when the mind does wander off, where did it go? What was it doing? What was it drawn towards? Or was it checking out? What was your experience? And after that reflection, you can just let it go and come back to awareness of the shepherd and I here with you again. So that meditation was intended to help you explore what I want to talk about in our topic today, which is desire, wanting. There's all kinds of words for that sensation. The movement towards or away from, like wanting to be somewhere other than we are right now, wanting something that we don't have right now. One of the best definitions I've heard for what suffering is wanting things to be other than they are, right? And it's that wanting that I wanted to explore today. And wanting is just, it's such a common habit, but it is the source of our discontent. We either have an object that we think if we only had that, then we would be happy. So there's a sense pleasure, or, if only I could do this or whatever, then I'd be happy. Or if I had this, or I had this food, if I had this person in my life. So there's that kind of desire for sense objects. And then there's the desire to be something else. Like, if only I wasn't so angry, life would be easier. If only I wasn't here, I could be a person out in a tree, so being somebody else. Or the other kind of desire is the desire to check out, to not want to be something, so a lot of us do that. We desire to watch TV so we can check out from having to be ourselves, right? We don't want to deal with this, so we'll go watch somebody else's life on TV, or we go into daydream land, or we just go to sleep. How many hours a day do we spend sleeping to avoid being present with our circumstances? So all of these are different. We always think of desire as wanting something, wanting an object, but there's the Buddha described those three different kinds of desire, and all of them, what happens is there's that initial wanting, and then right after that, almost immediately after, our tendency is to to have it like this. And that's part of what we want to explore today is, sometimes there can be desires that are helpful, like hopefully what brought you to watch this session today is a desire to learn something, to learn maybe a way to practice or learn to understand yourself in a different way. And that's what might be considered to be a helpful desire, right? Until it becomes an obsession, like I have to be the person that gets a meditation experience that makes everything drop away. So at what point does our practice even turn from something helpful to something that's just more wanting, wanting to escape or wanting to be the perfect meditator, to not be the one whose mind wanders off? How many of us have that desire, right? And then we're frustrated when the mind decides to do what it wants to do. So that's why in that meditation, I was encouraging you just, noticing what's happening and then just seeing what the tendencies of your mind are. Because usually we have certain tendencies, like some of us just really like to escape. And so we keep just checking out, either going to fantasy or something. Or some of us have the tendency to really want more sense pleasure. If I only had this food, if I only heard this music, if I only had this art or whatever. So we can start to see what does our mind, what's that tendency of it? And these are all just habits, right? And you think, well, I really want this. Well, yes, it's wanting, but it's wanting that just comes out of a habit. And if we can notice when it happens, and that's why we practice in meditation, watching this happen and what the tendencies are, we can start to see. It's like, oh God, I always do this. I always have this fantasy about being on a beach in Mexico or whatever. Every time I meditate, I go to the beach in Mexico. So what are our habits? Do we, and then by noticing that, and then the next instruction I gave was like noticing how the mind is with that. Sometimes we think that, oh, if I just go to the beach in Mexico, I'll be, I'll feel relaxed and I'll feel great. But then we notice there's a tension there because we don't have it. We know it's a fantasy. And then, we are still seized up, we're still suffering. So we can start to notice in meditation all these fine points of our experience of the wanting, that desire that leads to having to have it, that grasping that makes it so solid. And I can't be happy until I have that, or I don't have that. Fill in the blank. People you don't want, the guy down the hall that's always yelling. If he only wasn't in my life, I would be fine, So name whatever it is you desire that you move towards or that you push away or that you check out from. Get to know that. And then you don't have to say, this is who I am. It's in the noticing that's where there can be a space where we can choose, like, do I follow that? Or do I just go, oh, it's that desire again. Oh, it's just that wanting again. Oh, it's the wanting to check out again. And so it's that space there that we're looking for, that, as we always talk about, in that space is where we get to choose what our next response is, rather than just habitually going, oh, I'll be fine if I just have potato chips, and then just, and then when they're gone, you want another bag, right? So rather than following that habit, wait for the space and go like, oh, it's just a desire again. And then breathe. And sometimes just the noticing makes it drop away. So we can play with that in a meditation. And then the really fun part is doing this in our daily life, like watching what the tendency to be annoyed at the guy down the hall, just wanting him to shut up, but like, if you don't pay attention to that desire, if you pay attention to something else, read a book or whatever that might be more helpful, more calming, you notice that desire, that irritation goes away, and you can just be present with whatever you're doing. So this can be our practice, and do it with like curiosity rather than self-judgment is what I found is to be helpful. Like once you see that crazy tendency of yours, like don't judge it, because not wanting to be that person is just another desire. So do it with curiosity, just watch it as like a third party observer, like, oh, he's at it again, and look what happened, and in this way we can then just learn, our wisdom then takes over, and we just go, I'm just not doing it again. And that's the dispassion that helps lead to the release from these crazy desires that we have. So that's how I play with it. Miss Shepherd, how do you work with all this?
Yes. Yeah, I have to work with it for sure. There are a lot of cravings and desires and habitual patterns. And just as you say, Miss Ross, starting to be willing to kind of notice them and not judge them, just also as you said, but also have the ability to decide for oneself, is this nourishing? Is this helpful? Is this leading where I'd like to be? Is it supporting a mind and heart that makes me happier, or is it not? A couple of things come to mind. This idea of skillful desire and unskillful desire is really helpful, I think, because sometimes people say, oh, you can't have any desires. But just as Ms. Ross said, there are wishes or intentions that are skillful, desires that are skillful. And one of the ways that I've been trying to kind of think about those in deciding, well, how are you going to know which is a skillful and which isn't, is to notice how much self meanness is in them. If there is a lot of, it's for me, it's because of who I am, it's because of, if there's an I, me, mine in it, chances are it's going to lead right to suffering. If it's not about me, but just based on wisdom, on kindness, on compassion, on generosity, on clarity of seeing, chances are it's pretty good and will lead to some happiness. So just noticing the is it about getting something for me? That strong sense of ego and identification, and this is who I am, and this is what I should do, and this is what I should get, or this is what I don't want to get. Those things usually cause us suffering. I'm trying to think of an example. When I was having some conflict with my sister at one point, this was long ago, but maybe one of the first times I sort of really began to see this in myself. I could see that my frustration and irritation and judgments about what she was doing were all because she was my sister. Because I felt, because I didn't want her to be that way, because I was connected to her. It was all about the I, it was about me. When I could think, well, what would it be like if she wasn't my sister and she was just this person I knew that was having a hard time and was reacting in this way? Then, of course, I could open my heart in a whole different way and kind of see the situation so much more clearly, that the problem was the adding of the meanness that made me want things to be so different. When the me was out of it, I still didn't, I still wished it could be different, but I didn't have this intense demand that it be different. I could just see, oh, that's what's happening. That's what this person is doing. I see it's causing some suffering for her and for other people, but sometimes that's what has to happen for people to learn. So it allowed me to have compassion and kindness and towards her as well as myself, and respond in a much more useful way for both of us. And at the same time, I guess the one final thought I'd have is a story that always comes to mind when I think about craving and wanting and habits and how unpleasant they are, is that, just as Ms. Ross said, that it's through our working with and recognizing these habits of mind, these habitual wantings, that we grow. So the fact that they're there isn't a problem. What's called for is beginning to examine and understand them better. And so the story is a story about a monastery. And in a monastery, people live, cheek by jowl, and they're not people that, you haven't married these people. They're not there because you chose them. They're just random people, and you may like some and you may really not like some. Sort of like where you are. in an institution where people just come together and it's a whole mass of people and they're not who you've chosen to be with. So in this monastery, it was that way as well. And there was one individual that was just driving everyone batty. He was nasty and he said rude things and he didn't follow the monastic rules that everybody's supposed to follow. And he just made life hard for everyone. And people were constantly complaining. They would go to the abbot and complain about this person. And the abbot said, well, maybe you need to just kind of examine what your reactivity is here and see how you might settle your own heart around this man. So they tried that and it was really hard, but they kept trying. And then, much to their delight, this person left. He decided to disrobe and they were all thrilled. They were so happy. And for a couple of weeks, it was just wonderful. And then pretty soon, a new guy came who was equally frustrating and irritating and nasty. And so they went to the abbot and they said, didn't you see how great it was when that guy wasn't around? And now we got this other guy. Couldn't you please do something about getting this guy to just leave? He's just causing so many problems. And the abbot said, are you crazy? It took me forever to find that new guy to bring in. The idea being that we need those things, that those people are our teachers, and that we each have our own irritation points and people who drive us batty. But that's how we begin to grow and recognize, well, where are the things that I'm holding on to, and how can I learn to release them? That's what I got.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to work with this, whether it's the idea of, things shouldn't be that person shouldn't be that way, all of those things. And so yeah, the looking at the I or me, that self-involvement. And then the other thing that I do, and those of you who have listened to me long enough know, I go into the body. Like I just notice, where do I hold my tension? That's where I've trained myself in my meditations to notice, where do I hold tension? And so even if I'm wanting something, like, I'm dreaming about pizza or something, I just check into my body and it's like, oh yeah, your heart's seized up, your hands are clenched, your jaw is clenched. It's like, this probably isn't really, there's no equanimity around this. This is just wanting. And, so if I just turn into the body and notice all that tension, like even when you think something is a healthy desire, if you check in with your body and the body's all seized up around it, as I've said before, the mind can lie. We can make up stories about why this would be good for me, but if you're tight around it, if your heart is tight, or if you're self-identifying around it, as Ms. Shepherd was talking about it, recheck your intention. And see, really what's going on. And that's why we train in these different ways to we're looking at things from all different angles. So even though our habits tell us this is really a good thing, or this will be good for you, or you listen to your friend, he says, yeah, this will be really good for you. Like, but check in with where your wisdom is, whether it's in your body or just taking a pause and then really checking and saying, is this really for my long-term benefit? Yeah, there might be a short-term benefit, even to checking out, short-term benefit to checking out, but I still have to face the world. I still have to face that annoying guy down the hall, or the monk that the other guys didn't want, and so this is our practice, and that's where it goes. We practice in the relatively controlled environment of our meditation practice. So we can start to see what our tendencies are, get to know ourselves, like where do we carry our reactivity? What's the stories we keep telling ourselves? So what are our habits? And then that way we can see them more clearly out in the real world, which is what really matters. And this is where I think the biggest thing where we can tell ourselves a story is like, my practice is to learn how to meditate so I can escape. Like, how many people have I heard say that, oh, it'll be fine next time I'm on a week-long retreat, I'll be fine. I can just shut everybody else out and go inside. Well, what kind of way is that to live your life? We have to be out in the world. And so we can use our practice to help us learn, but it's But if you're thinking about your meditation as a way to escape, it's okay to give yourself a little vacation, but don't think you're going to live there, because we do have to come back to the world. So even check that intention and don't judge it, know that it's wholesome to allow yourself to escape sometimes, because we need that to recharge our batteries and to let some of the stress of the world go. But know that we do have to come back. That's not an ultimate solution. And can we use the other parts of our practice to get the wisdom to learn how to be with those desires and work with them? So yeah, it's quite a practice. So
maybe just one more thing I'd add too.
Yeah.
It's not that you're trying to never want anything ever again. It's that you're not reacting to those wants. That I think one of the practices I sometimes will do is just in the meditation is just to watch how endlessly wants arise, just endlessly. I remember one time that sort of, maybe it was the first time I really noticed that. It was like just continuous, just from one of the, I want that, I don't want, I want or I don't want was constant. I don't want my foot to fall asleep. I want my back to be straighter. I want this to end. I want something I'm thinking about. I want to go on Amazon and look for XYZ. It was just this extreme of wants. It was pretty overwhelming. But so it's not that we're trying to get rid of those. The mind might continue to do those. It's more our reactivity to them. Do we have to act on everyone? Do we have to believe everyone and make them happen? I think of it too around starting to really notice when, just like Ms. Ross was saying, when the wants actually are fulfilled, because sometimes they are, to notice how quickly they don't seem very important anymore and a new one replaces it. I know one of my teachers talks about that actually that experience of wanting, it's that moment just when you know it's actually going to be fulfilled that is the most satisfying. Then once you get it, kind of, okay, now I got that, now what? And it's just that cyclic quality of wanting that we're just getting familiar with so that we don't believe it. It can still be happening. It's arising and falling. Here's a want, but we don't have to believe that we need those things and that they have to be fulfilled. I think for me, that was the biggest difference. So it's not that you're changing the whole way your mind ever operates, but you're not believing what your mind is doing as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just notice it, noticing how it is. And when you actually act on what you think is actually a need, paying attention through the process and noticing how quickly that drops away and you're on to the next need, or whatever. So this is where we get to learn. And, after a while you can kind of laugh about it. At first it's like, oh my God, this is totally frustrating and stupid. But then after a while, but this is human nature. Like, this is what's made humans as successful as we are, is always wanting the next thing, like to be better, and so theoretically that's what has led to us making progress, but it's also where our neuroses, where our craziness comes from, because it never ends, So that's what we're trying to do in our practice, is seeing what is the beneficial part of our human tendencies and then what's not so helpful. And this wanting and having to act on these wants. And as the Buddha would say, don't believe us, check it out for yourself and see how it goes. What's your experience with this? And, and with honesty and a sense of humor, maybe, but a lot of curiosity, around this. So
and noticing, I'm sorry.
No, just not being too tight. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, noticing how we live in a sea trying to encourage us to want more and more and more and more. I mean, if you don't want to start paying attention to your own mind, just pay attention to the television set and notice how everything on the television set is to encourage you to want something or to not want something. That's just, that's how the capitalist society operates. People make money.
I was going to say, so the Buddhist teachings are totally un-American, but that's okay, because it makes us happier. it gives you control over your life again. Because if you do watch a lot of TV, all those, the things that you think you have to have, it's all generated. They've all figured out how to plug into that human desire, and they're reeling it in. And so what we're doing is declaring our freedom by not being controlled by that. But believe me, they have a science around how to make you want. And
They're good at
so
it.
we're bucking the system. So if you want to be a radical and you want to buck the system, this is the way. That's my strategy.
Very true.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think? Do you want to maybe do another short meditation and wrap it up? Okay.
Yep. Let's do
Thank you.
meditation. So just a moment, I'll put the shrine up. So taking a deeper breath, coming into the body, either closing your eyes or letting them gently, letting your focus soften so that you can turn inside. And coming into the body especially, just as Miss Ross said. That our practice is to train the mind, but we train the mind by getting familiar and learning the body. So setting the intention to either stay with the body or with the breath for these next few moments, next few minutes. Noticing what the breath is like right now. Breathing in, breathing out. Maybe as the meditation begins, intentionally breathing a little bit slower and longer for a few breaths. Let's do 5 longer breaths together. Breathing in, holding the breath for a few moments. Breathing out all the way. Breathing in 2. Breathing out 2. In 3. Out 3. In 4. Out 4. In 5. Out 5. And then letting the breath return to whatever rhythm is right for you. Noticing any sensations that are throughout the body. Any tingling, warmth, coolness, tension. Really coming into the body right now. For these few minutes of meditation, keeping the body sensations really to the fore. Thoughts may still be there, but let them go to the background. Noticing what's happening to the breath. Now, is it longer? Is it shorter? How do each breaths, what's unique about each breath? How are they the same or different? Having a sense of the entire body, sitting, knowing the body sitting. As you scan the sitting body as a whole, if there is some tension you recognize in a certain spot, seeing if it can be softened, released, even just a little. If you notice lots of thoughts have arisen, letting them drop and reconnecting to each breath as you breathe in, as you breathe out. Does the breath feel easeful or harsh? Knowing you can adjust it if it doesn't feel easy, if it's not comfortable. How might you breathe differently to make it feel more comfortable? Being with your body is a constant investigation. It's as if you're painting a picture or smoothing a bed, or you can adjust what's happening in the body so that it is comfortable, or more comfortable maybe. Not perfect. But if there's a spot that's tense, it can be released. If it can't be released, let it rest there and put your attention somewhere where there is some ease and comfort. Notice that your left shoulder actually feels very relaxed, even if the right shoulder feels tight. See how the breath can help send ease and energy throughout the body. Think of the breath as breath energy. We're helping to move that gentle, kind energy into every little corner of the body. Letting the breath energy fill the body. Smooth the body. Giving you a lovely place to rest. Not sleep, but to have a wakeful rest. Using that slow, intentional breathing can be a way to begin your meditation anytime you want. You could do it for 10 breaths. You could do it for just 3 breaths. But starting with some intentional, slower breaths can sometimes help reconnect into the body. And that's one of the things we're aiming to do in our meditation, is to reconnect to the life force of the body. Allow yourself to come out slowly, letting in light if your eyes have been closed. One of the things about our practice that helps us connect into the body and the breath is that the more we're present with the body and the actual felt sensations of the body, the less insistent and loud are the cravings that arise, the less the mind is screaming at us. So the more we can be resident in the body sensations themselves, all of those other things quiet down. And we can also then get a clearer sense of what actually is arising in the mind, to become more familiar with the habit patterns that the mind has, so that we're more prepared and they don't catch us off guard and we fall into those same old habits. So we will hope to see you in a couple of weeks again. I'm glad to be here. I hope you have the ability to see some of the sunlight and maybe even hear some birds. And we will look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. Miss Ross.
Yeah, take care, everybody, and just encourage you to keep practicing, just keep noticing what's happening. And, I wish we could hear what your report is on all that, but we will someday. So thinking of you, take care. You will.
Take care, drop the judgments. Know you have the ability to do everything we've talked about. Everyone can, and you can too. And that it absolutely will help you. It's helped both of us. That's why we're here. We've been exactly where you are in the mind. Our minds all operate pretty similarly. We've all been caught in desires and unskillful desires and habit patterns that lead us to no good. So, and we've both found that this practice is what made the difference, what really turned things around, and it can for you as well. And that's our wish, that it is of help to you. And we know from the times we have been coming in person and watched, we've seen the enormous changes in people. And it's very inspiring to us, which is why we keep coming. So thank you for your practice. Have a good couple weeks.